Hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news and update show. We're going to discuss all the news in the opening 15 minutes of today's video, and then we're getting a special guest on the channel to talk about this news, some of the problems at United, leaks and more. So stay tuned for an action-packed show. But last night's show, we spoke about rumours of Richard Arnold being sacked, Man United going for Paul Mitchell, and I said, I think it's PR spin, but leaks have come out today that those at the top of the club are not happy with John Murtough. John Murtough could potentially be being sacked. They've already got a sporting director lined up to replace him, who's the Atletico Madrid sporting director that's done some good deals, done some bad deals, and that Manchester United are planning to make major changes at the top of the club. Now, most of me thinks PR spin, things are going bad, pressure on the Glazers. Most of me thinks PR spin, but we've had a few reports in the last few days about Murtaugh's job being unsafe, Arnold's job being unsafe, staff unhappy with Arnold because of the Mason agreement situation. All of this. We've had a lot of news. We've had a lot of leaks coming out over the last few days about the future of Murtough, Arnold. We're going to get into that. If it's spin, if it's not spin. Who is this new sporting director that Manchester United are looking at? Reports that the dressing room's at an all-time toxicity. Has Sancho already got a verbal agreement with Dortmund? Many stories to discuss in today's video. So please do smash the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new and share the video. And as Jasmine will say, nothing will change even if we have the same owners. Even if we sack Murtough and Arnold and bring in a good director of football, still not enough for me. The owners need to go, and I'm with that. I'm with you on that. And I'm going to talk about why I think John Murtough, if he is sacked, could become a scapegoat at United. Now, it has come from Miguel Delaney, who's a hit and miss source, but as we spoke about in yesterday's live stream, there was other reports coming out that were looking at Paul Mitchell when we were going to be sacking Arnold. So I think the fact that the last few days there has been a few sources like talking about Murtough and Arnold's future not being so sure and happiness at the club at them. Maybe there's some truth in this story. Maybe it's PR spin. But it was said here, officials at other clubs have been privately dismissive of Manchester United Director of Football John Murtough. Some have even questioned whether he would get such a lofty role elsewhere and if the job is too big for him. It is felt he doesn't have the contact base and some of his equivalents. So negative debriefs have been coming out about John Murtough. Negative debriefs have been coming out about Richard Arnold. Now, there are reports that Manchester United, those at the top, are questioning John Murtough as well. And I do think the negative briefs on John Murtough, the negative briefs on Richard Arnold, I think is a Glazer tactic, personally, to turn the fans on Arnold and Murtough and distract the fans from turning on the Glazers. Now, I don't think Arnold and Murtough are good enough, but I don't think Arnold and Murtough are the biggest problem at this club. The biggest problem at this club is those above them. And while I think that Murtough should be replaced with an actual sporting director, you know, Murtough is an improvement on Woodward, which anyone is, and Murtough does need to go and be replaced with a proper sporting director. But, and I do like the sporting director we've been linked to, but I think this story is deeper. I think these reports and rumours that Murtaugh's job's on the edge and people are dismissive of Murtaugh's future. You know what? I've got a few things to say about this as well. And this is my theory, and this is just a theory. Before I get to the next news story, when things went really bad for the Glazers, when the fans turned on the Glazers like they never had before, the Super League protest, what did we do? We got rid of Ed Woodward. The Super League protest, that falling through, the outrage of the fans, the getting the Liverpool game called off, that had a massive impact on the Glazers, the finances of United, their reputation. That almost got the Glazers to leave. The protests do work. We need to do more of that, getting the games called off. But what the Glazers did to distract us was sack Ed Woodward. Now, Ed Woodward needed to go. He was awful. Ed Woodward is 10 times worse than Murtough and Arnold. Murtough and Arnold, I think, need to go, but they ain't given the funds to do much. You know, Woodward was just terrible. Like, he was a new level of terrible. And Ed Woodward needed to go. He was a disgrace. He should have never been near this football club, and he was a Glazer. Ed Woodward was up there with the Glazers. I think Arnold and Murtough, they're not the best people. You don't want them running your football club, but they're not Glazer level of incompetence. But Woodward was, to be fair. And Woodward went, and I'm glad Woodward went. But Woodward, the relief of Woodward going, got the Glazers off the hook of what they did with the Super League. The Woodward, the Glazers, and Real Madrid's owner, I forgot what his name is, they were the four people behind the Super League. Woodward took the blame for the Glazers. Woodward being sacked was the big PR call from the Glazers because of these protests getting the Liverpool games off. Now, what I sometimes think of and what I sometimes worry is there are reports that the Glazers are increasingly likely to stay at United. They're thinking of staying, this Jim Ratcliffe minority stake. All of a sudden, we're getting reports that John Murtaugh's future's unsafe, Arnold's future's unsafe. Part of me worries, and again, this is just a theory, I will get into the news, could they sack Murtagh or sack Arnold if they stay. Now, this is what I mean. They sacked Woodward after the Super League debacle because fans were at an all-time low. If we've had this takeover ongoing for a year and they don't go with Qatar and they stay and accept a minority offer from Sir Jim, that's going to cause mad fan outrage. That's going to cause mad protests. But could Murtagh and Arnold be the ones who are thrown under the bus? Could rumours of unhappiness around Murtagh's future, Arnold's future, United looking at directors of football, this could just be a big PR spin. It could just be a load of waffle that's come from Miguel Delaney and not the most reliable sources. But part of me thinks if they do stay, if they do accept that minority offer from Sir Jim Ratcliffe that could allow them to stay, there will be such mad fan outrage like there was last time they got rid of Woodward. Would they get rid of Murtagh and replace him with someone else to try and appease the fan outrage, to try and distract the fan outrage? Because I think that Murtagh's not good enough. I think that Arnold's not good enough. But they're not the biggest problem. The owners are. And I think I could see these owners throwing Arnold, throwing Murtagh under the bus if they stay as a PR distraction for the fans to be like, okay, Murtagh's gone, Arnold's gone, we've got a proper director of football in. But at the end of the day, the Glazers are still here. Maybe that's my theory. And I'm not saying that the Glazers are going to stay. I'm not saying they're going to accept Jim Ratcliffe's offer. But it does worry me, rumours about Murtagh's future and Arnold's future being unsafe in the sense of, I think that's what the Glazers would do if they stayed. They would know the fans are going to be angry and they would throw Arnold and Murtagh under the bus as a PR distraction, which, look, we need to get the sporting director in. I'm all for it. The board needs a complete refresh. But I would rather keep Arnold and Murtagh than the Glazers. You know, I think because any good owner will get rid of Arnold and Murtagh anyway. Do you know what I mean? But maybe that's just a theory. Maybe I'm being silly. Maybe I'm overthinking that. But I think he needs to go. Now, guys, please do smash that like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Share the video and all of that stuff as well. I've got a few stories that I want to dive into surrounding Manchester United potentially getting a new director of football. Now, this new director of football was someone who worked at Atletico Madrid, someone who was known for doing a good job at Atletico Madrid. And I will get this story up now for you here. Guys, please do quickly hit that like button and, of course, subscribe down below if you're new as well. We've also got some stories coming out on the takeover that I want to get into. But if we can quickly pull up this story here, I think this is quite an interesting story. It was said just in, Manchester United want to bring in Atletico Madrid sporting director Andrea Berta. They could face competition from PSG and Spurs. So reports are coming out that Manchester United want to bring in a new sporting director. And this is the guy that worked at Atletico Madrid. He did really good deals, like people like Rodri, who we would all want at Manchester United right now. He's done many good things, and he's done some things that I don't think were particularly the best deals as well. And we're going to get into the deals he's done. They should sack Arnold and Murtagh. I agree. Board yes men, a massive part of the problems at United. I agree. It's clear as day. Look at Newcastle doing top to bottom. Look at us. We will talk about that later in the show. Let's see if we can get 100 likes as well. And competition from Spurs. Yeah. Well, the thing is, Spurs are ambitious now. Spurs never had the best owners, but Spurs are ambitious. Spurs have got Angin. They want to spend a bit of money. They've got an ambitious project. They see that Arsenal. You know what's happened at the Premier League clubs? I'll tell you this now for a fact. You know what's happened? The structure of Arsenal's changed. The structure of Liverpool's changed. The structure of Tottenham is now changing. They're all seeing that these clubs are getting good sporting directors and good directors of football and good people at the top to make the decisions. Owners spend a bit more money on staff, but they make the decisions and it's a bit more led by staff. Some footballing people are doing this and that, and they're getting modern managers in and doing young rebuilds. And you know, this is what City did. This is what Arsenal are now doing. This is what Liverpool are doing. Spurs are now doing it. All of these clubs are trying these new kind of rebuilds, reconstructions of the side and all of that. And Manchester United just sit there and go, we'll just be doing what we've done every year since Fergie's left. That's failure, 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 failure. All these other clubs around us are realising that actually you've got to completely change the structure of how a football club operates these days to be at the top. You need this, you need that, you need this, you need that. We need the right people in. And our club, you know, Man United, we don't seem particularly interested in that. I think we have no interest in bringing in a proper sporting director or proper owners. I think a lot of it is absolute PR. But we have got Usman who's going to come into the show, guys. So do welcome Usman in just a second. Here, let me just add him in and make sure my headphones are working. We need Paul Mitchell versus David Hatton, and we will talk about that. But big up, Usman. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be here as always. Make sure you get the likes from people. Obviously supporting Alice as always. As you can see, I'm still repping my United, although it'll be an embarrassment. So happy days.
Yeah, it's very embarrassing at the moment, especially when you see Newcastle had proper owners for 2 years in the Champions League, smashing PSG, and what are we doing? Getting beaten by Galatasaray.
Absolutely embarrassing. Honestly, I think, to be honest, that a lot of people, looking from the outside in, will always criticize Man United fans for, constantly, oh, it's always the Glazers' fault. But Newcastle are a perfect example of what owners can do. I mean, they were literally in a relegation scrap prior to the takeover. I mean, it was essentially a do or die situation for a lot of Newcastle fans under Mike Ashley. And to be honest, I didn't expect anywhere near of trajectory in terms of Newcastle progressing this quickly in such a short period of time. Of course, like that win for them against Paris Saint-Germain is definitely massive. I thought my fire alarm was going off. I do apologise. Yeah, so obviously that was a massive win for them, and of course it just kind of epitomises the importance of owners that have the right mindset, and also the atmosphere that they generated yesterday.
Oh yeah,
Understandably, it was a great occasion for them. It was their first game back in the Champions League at St James Park, so of course there was going to be that extra bit of atmosphere. But that being said, I was saying this to a couple of mates earlier. When was the last time we generated that kind of atmosphere at Old Trafford? I mean, for me, we've just become a soulless club under the Glazers' tenure. I mean, there was people at the Galatasaray game sat under the stand getting water on them because it was leaking once again. Had Galatasaray fans in the home end, and not just a few or a handful. You're talking all around the ground. There's that clip that's going around where there's Galatasaray fans in different pockets of the stadium. It's an absolute shambles from top to bottom. And obviously, for me personally, I just think not much is going to change. Obviously, there's stuff that can be changed on the pitch, but the bigger picture, the overarching picture, is extremely bleak because of the situation with the Glazers. I mean, for me, the buck stops with them, and as you mentioned, Newcastle, it's just night and day, really, isn't it, Alice? I mean, look at them and look at us where we are now. You would have never said it. If someone said to you 2 years ago, Newcastle, you'd rather be a Newcastle United fan or a Manchester United fan. I mean, things haven't been great for United, but you would have never taken that deal. So
yeah,
it's an absolute travesty, to be honest.
yeah. I think the fact that we let so many Galatasaray fans in, the state of the stadium, the results, even the injury crisis, I think is partly on the fact that Ten Hag wasn't allowed to bring in certain medical staff. We've not updated facilities. There's just so many problems at this club that come back to those at the very top of the owners. And there's obviously been reports today that were speaking that United were looking at a new sporting director. They wanted to sack Murta. They wanted to sack Arnold. All of this, which I think is a big PR. But I wanted to get into the rumoured sporting director that Manchester United could be looking at, who he's brought, and then how would you personally change United? If you were the Qataris or new owners coming in, how would you refresh United? So the sporting director we've been linked to is Andrea Berta today. I think it probably is a bit of a PR spin at the moment just because things are bad. But he's obviously got reputation of deals like David Villa, Anton Griezmann, Jan Oblak, a few flops as well. Rodri from Villarreal was one of his good deals. Lamar was a flop. João Felix was massively overpriced. Llorente was decent. He's got an okay track record, but, a lot of people are sitting here saying, should we be looking at a Paul Mitchell, a Michael Edwards? In terms of a sporting director, in terms of a rebuild, what direction would you go?
I mean, look, firstly, I do agree with you. I do definitely think it's a PR stunt. I mean, we see without a fail, like every time Manchester United lose a big game or, whatever happens, there's always those like 2-3 reports from the same individuals about, oh, there's a takeover rumor, Manchester United going to be taken over, yada, yada, yada. And it just seems to be subsequent to every time we lose a game, it always seems to be the case. So for me, I'm not reading too much into it. I mean, the funny thing regarding the whole matter, is there background noise? Am I tripping? I don't know if it's coming from me or you.
Maybe it's coming from me.
Right. Sure. Okay, I was thinking it's coming from me, so I'll learn to fix that. Yeah, so obviously in terms of the DOF, we actually had one. Ralph Ranić, who's got a fantastic track record. So obviously people are mentioning names, but the truth of the matter is, honestly, we just fumbled the biggest bag that we could have had. And the maddest thing is, I don't know if this is in the past and it's kind of sidetracking to an extent, but Ralph Ranić was the guy. He was the one that we would have wanted. Like, if you're looking at it now, let's say he never managed Manchester United, a lot of people will be throwing his name out there because he's done an unbelievable job at so many different clubs. I mean, the other names that you mentioned, obviously Paul Mitchell is the one that's been touted a lot regarding the Manchester United situation. Obviously, he's been linked to us on numerous occasions. Look, for me personally, he would probably be my preferable choice. But I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I know a great deal about directors of football in general of their track records. Obviously, I know from Paul Mitchell, obviously people that respect within the industry. A lot of them, basically put him on a pedestal. So based off their opinions, I would assume he's a lot better than a lot of options out there. But in general, obviously, look, for me, it's a massive issue at Manchester United. The recruitment has been abysmal. But the biggest change for me, Alice, is the wage structure. I mean, with selling players, it's absolutely impossible with the wage structure that we currently employ, and also just bringing players in. I just don't understand why a lot of our players are on astronomical wages, most of which haven't really done anything at Manchester United Football Club. I mean, we seem to be giving new contracts out willy-nilly when the players haven't warranted new contracts. I mean, there's rumours about Eric Ten Hag being in negotiations for a new contract, and again, I don't really care about the manager getting a new contract, but why is that even being discussed? We're not in a situation where he should be that shouldn't even be a conversation, and that's not a discredit to him. But wait until the end of the season, unless they're running out of the contract, and it's something that we need to immediately fix. It's not something that is relevant for me, and we see it a lot with some of our players that are running down contracts or maybe need a new contract. They're just getting contracts with stupid wages. I mean, Sancho is the best example of that, but we've just got De Gea off the wage bill. We've got a couple other players off the wage bill. I thought this was the perfect opportunity to now reduce it, at least say like, okay, 300k is the cap. We should have never went to 300k in the first place, but now that we're here, we can't really obviously sit right, but okay, take 250, so to speak. Look, for me, the wage bill has to be sorted. I mean, I don't know how they're going to go about it because it's an absolute minefield, but they need to sort it out. When they're buying new players, they need to start offering them less wages. I don't know what Mason Mount is on, but for me personally, tripling people's wages is not the way that Man United need to operate. So I think for whoever director of football comes in, that has to be the number one priority. They need to get that wage bill done ASAP.
Yeah, 350k a week for Jadon Sancho, and refusing to play, refusing to apologise. I'm at the point with it where look, I think that Jadon Sancho, I got why he was upset in the first place. Anthony had been absolutely rubbish, but when you're on £350,000 a week, even if you don't like your manager, even if you don't like your boss, in any other industry, you'd be sacked. You wouldn't be paid if you pulled that. I think he needs to just make up the manager. He won't. And I think, maybe getting Sancho off the wage bill, although I wanted him to play right wing this season, although I was happy with him in pre-season, maybe that will be a blessing in disguise, biggest earner. I think Marcus Rashford's new contract, he's not been the same since his new contract, which I think is particularly worrying. But I'm with you on the wage bill. And do you know what annoyed me was Lisandro Martinez. There was talk in the summer of Lisandro Martinez being offered a new contract. And I thought, look, he was brilliant last season, Lisandro Martinez. He was arguably our best player until he got injured. But he'd been here a year. He'd got 4 years left on his contract. Why would we even think of giving him a new contract? He's not been brilliant this season when he's played, but he's played with an injury. So that's not really his fault. And he's got another injury and he's out for a while. But I even thought, why are we thinking of giving Martinez a new contract after one season when he's already got 5 years on his contract? And you know what I liked about Ten Hag, actually, and I think he did try and change this culture, was they wanted to give Fred, De Gea, Luke Shaw, Rashford, like everyone who was 1 year left on their contract below, they wanted to give them new contracts beginning of this season. And Eric Ten Hag was like, I've been here a month. I'm not going to hand out any new contracts. We can extend by a year if worse comes to worse to anyone until I've had time to assess. He didn't give Fred a new contract because he thought, well, Fred's good in the short term, long term, is Fred going to be here in 3 years? No, he probably would have been useful this season with the midfield issues. He's given Dalot a new contract. He's given Rashford a new contract. Held off on the De Gea contract, which I do think was probably the right decision at the end of the day, despite Onana being poor. But it's definitely United have this thing of loving giving out new contracts. Under Ollie, Phil Jones and Eric Bailly got new contracts. Yeah. They didn't play. They weren't good enough. And I think United do it because they think, if we put this player on a new contract, we can sell them for more money. And it's like, no, because you're giving them stupid wages that they're not going to leave the club. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, the Jones one again is another example. I mean, Bailly as well, to be fair. I mean, it's just ridiculous in the manner in which we are run from top to bottom. Like I said, if you're Bruce Leakey, what else can you say? And the club does not care. It's just embarrassing. It really is. Like, for me, it's just the whole situation is a mess. Yes, we do need a DOF, but the truth of the matter is, unless it's somebody that Eric Ten Hag can work with, is it going to really make that much of a difference? I'm not 100% sure. But that being said, they can't do worse than Merton and Edward because them two have been an absolute disgrace. Honestly, that when Woodward went, I think we won a stream together actually on my channel at the time when the news broke, and we're all elated. I still remember it. We were absolutely buzzing, and then we found out Mercer was coming in, and we were like, "Who the hell is Mercer?" And then obviously we very quickly found out who Mercer was. But yeah, it's just job for mates, isn't it? Essentially.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, you know, we sat Woodward. There's an opportunity to bring in Michael Edwards. There's an opportunity to bring in someone good. I think, what's the name of the guy who was at Brighton that went to Newcastle? Completely lost his name. But Newcastle went and got Brighton's one with their rebuild. There was such a good opportunity to replace Murta with someone that knew something about football. And John Murta was already at the club. Richard Arnold was already at the club. They'd already been part of this 8 years of failure. Why couldn't we bring someone new in? And as you said, we had this golden opportunity with Ralph Rangnick, and Ralph Rangnick wanted to bring in Paul Mitchell. And I'm thinking right now, if we didn't have Arnold and Murta and we had Ralph Rangnick and Paul Mitchell, give or take, I do think one thing that holds back Arnold and Murta is I don't think the Glazers will release them the funds that I think they did want to get Eric Ten Hag, Kim Min-jae, from what I've heard. But the Glazers actually stopped that. So I will give Arnold and Murta the benefit of the doubt. There's some things that are out of their hands. And I think whoever is sporting director will probably come under more criticism than maybe they need, in the sense of just because those above the Glazers are awful. But if we'd had Ralph Rangnick and if we'd had Paul Mitchell come in, you know, when Ralph Rangnick was here, and we'd had proper people at the club supporting Ten Hag, I think the rebuild would be so much easier. And the thing that always gets me, Usman, is I think we spend so much money on so many crap players to then not finish in the top 4, to be rubbish, to have to spend more money, to have to spend money to sack managers, to have to do this, to have to do that. I'm thinking, surely, if you had a good strategy in place, you had good footballing people at the club, you had Ralph Rangnick spending 12 million on Enzo Fernandez and 17 million on Julian Alvarez, who'd walk into our team right now, you know, and Ralph Rangnick could find these gems and then get those experienced players in, and we had a proper rebuild with Paul Mitchell and Ralph Rangnick, we'd probably spend less money, be a better team, and that would mean we wouldn't have to sack a manager and spend all this money for another rebuild, this and that. And I just think it's like their lack of brains. I'm thinking, well, okay, your goal is for us to play well and be in the Champions League so we bring in more money, but not have to spend as much money in the transfer window so you can profit more. So surely you bring in someone who knows how to do that job and give them free reins.
Yeah, I mean, it completely contradicts what they're trying to do, which is essentially be cheapskates. I mean, a lot of rival fans don't understand how it works within the United structure, but you've summed it up perfectly. I mean, at the end of the day, if they actually brought in the right people, as you alluded to, they would bring in the gems, which essentially would mean we spend less money. I mean, Caicedo, Alvarez, and who was the other one? Enzo Fernandez, sorry, them three in particular, would have probably cost us like 40 to 50 million. There's probably somebody else I've missed out as well, but 40 to 50 million, and that's what, less than what we paid for Mason Mount for 3 or 4 players there. So just little things like that is extremely infuriating. I mean, at the end of the day, you see all the teams doing great business. I hate Liverpool with an absolute passion, but you can't fault them. I mean,
Szoboszlai's been amazing.
So, yeah, Szoboszlai's been absolutely fantastic. Yeah, they paid quite a premium price on him, I'm not going to lie. But to be fair to the guy, he's proved every penny so far. But McAllister for £35 million, yes, again, I know that was a release clause. Yes, we can't credit Liverpool for a triggering release clause. But where the hell were we? Like, where were we in that conversation? I mean, again, West Ham United, teams at West Ham United, Brighton is the team that most notable for it, but I think even West Ham United has somewhat gone under the radar. They sold Declan Rice for 105 million. If Manchester United sold a player for 105 million, what would we have done? We would have blown 80 million on that on an absolute idiot. Like, with all due respect, like, we would have literally blown 80 of that million on one player. But what have West Ham done? They bought 3 players. They bought James Ward-Prowse, 30 million, Alvarez, 30 million, I believe it was. And there was one more, Kudus, as well, for like 35. So they essentially spent like 95 million. They've still got 10 million left in the bank. Obviously, they probably spent that elsewhere. I think Mavropanos or whoever it was. But the point being is, other teams have shown that there is a blueprint out there. And I'm not saying, oh, don't spend 70, 80 million, because I'm extremely guilty of wanting these, high-profile players. But at the same time, why are we not capable of finding these gems? Why are we not capable of getting these players on cheap? I mean, Bruno Fernandes, although I don't rate him, as you know, that highly, he was one of the cheaper players you got, really, for in terms of like value from Bruno, in terms of output. I think it's like 45 million or something. We haven't had many of them kind of players. Like, I think Varane, actually, to be fair, was 30 million. If he stayed fit, he would have been something on that. If he stayed there, he would have been worth the money as well. But you're looking at 2 out of like 20 plus signings. I mean, and both them players, Varane in particular, has got a great pedigree, so to speak. So it's not really a gem. And obviously Bruno Fernandes again was somewhat well known within Europe. So again, them 2 players, they're not really like gems, so to speak. So for me personally, as you said, it just doesn't make sense. They do everything backwards. I mean, if you want to save money, but bring in the right people that will help you save money. I'm going to ask you, Alice. I know it's your show, but I'm going to ask you. What are your thoughts on Ten Hag? Because obviously it is a topic of conversation within the United fan base. So, where do you sit with the situation? You just alluded to obviously sacking managers. Like, where do you sit with the Ten Hag situation?
So I like Ten Hag. I think he's got a lot of things against him. He's got the owners that won't work with him, an incompetent board around him, a lot of injuries. I think the players have attitude problems. So I'm not Ten Hag out, I'm Ten Hag in. And one of the main reasons I'm Ten Hag in is purely for the sense of how many managers have we sacked, how many managers have we gone through, and the cycle will continue. You sack Ten Hag, the next guy that's appointed will probably be in this position. Unless Pep Guardiola was knocking on the door begging for the Man United job, I'll keep Ten Hag for now, because also I don't think any good coaches really want to come to United these days. I think they realise that they're hung out to dry. I think if we get Qatari owners, it's a different story. People want to come to us, but I think you sack Ten Hag, there's no one available. I think whoever replaces Ten Hag, I just think we'll have the same problems. However, I am critical of Ten Hag in many aspects. I'm Ten Hag in, and I'm going to stay Ten Hag in for the remainder of the season. Fergie needed time. Arteta was allowed to finish 8th and 5th, but we're not allowed to have a bad second season after a disappointing transfer window where we didn't get a defender. We got B or C options. We've had a lot of injuries. Even if we come 7th this season, I'm going to stay Ten Hag in. Even though I'm critical of him, for the pure reason that I know that nothing will change if we continuously sack managers. But I have to say this on Ten Hag, there's a little bit of favouritism in there that I think is going to cost him. There's a little bit of in-game management substitutions that massively needs to improve. How we see out a game, that's really poor. Sometimes when we're 1-0 up, I just know that it's not going to last. And I think, also the lack of control, the lack of style. Now, I think the big reason that we're not seeing a style of play like obviously Tottenham was seeing with Ange, a big reason is the injuries are massive and they're massively impacting us, and we can't see in the long term the style of play. But we need to see a bit more. There's no control. We go 1-0 up and we're hooping long and switching and they're playing. It's like, well, we have the opportunity to take Sting out of the game, slow it down, and we're bypassing the midfield and build up, which I guess because we didn't sign the right profile midfielder. I think Mount's been good, but it wasn't the right profile. It's just a bit of a mess at the moment when we play. Part of it is on Ten Hag and its choices, but also it's just the attitude of the players, the off the ball work. Only Mason Mount and Hojlund and Mejbri were doing the off the ball work, and they were the 3 players that actually were all right. It's a difficult one. I'm critical of Ten Hag. Not happy with the way we're playing, but I also know that I believe he can turn it around, and I believe that he's got a hard job, because I think the players have a big reputation of when things go wrong, give up, season over. But with 10 games into the season, I worry that the players are going to just think it's season over and the board's working against him. But I think it's too many bigger problems. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you touched on quite a few things. I mean, I think for me personally, there are obviously a lot of different facets with the Ten Hag situation. I think for me personally, of course I'm Ten Hag again. I'm not going to turn the manager anytime soon personally. However, what I will say is similar to yourself to an extent, I don't think he's helped himself a lot in the last couple of weeks. I do think the left back situation is a bit of a shambles. Obviously, we've got 3 left backs out, which is ridiculous. Of course, the emergency left back we signed gets injured as well. What the odds of that, bro? So he's very unfortunate in that situation. I do obviously sympathise or empathise, should I say, with that. But for me, he doesn't help himself. Why is he still persisting with Amrabat at left back? It was quite apparent that Amrabat, after the second performance, isn't capable of playing a left back. When he was up against somewhat of a threat in the second game, his second performance at left back, he got absolutely rinsed. I mean, we saw against Galatasaray, Amrabat was at fault for 2 of the goals. You could make a case for the second one. The third one, personally, was at fault. Again, there is definitely a case for that, but obviously playing everyone on side, has absolutely no situational awareness because he's not familiar with that position. So for me, little tweaks. half-time. I don't understand why. Again, I'm not Maguire's biggest fan, but why is it not being used against Galatasaray? Surely Maguire can do a job against Galatasaray at home, and he's not realistically going to have to defend that much. He'll obviously have to do bits and bobs here and there, but overall, he's a centre-back. You've got Amrabat out of position for absolutely no reason. He was bought to play centre mid. I think Hannibal Medri went off at half-time with an injury, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that was a tactical change. Although Eriksen, to be fair to him, was very good on the ball.
Yeah.
But off the ball, I've made this point as well. It was quite noticeable that Hannibal Medri wasn't in the middle of the park. We looked extremely more open in the second half than the first half. And for whatever reason, Ten Hag doesn't make the changes. And I think, for me, last season, there was a period where his in-game management was absolutely phenomenal, and he was getting applauded for it, and rightfully so. Me included, I was right there with him in terms of, he's making X, Y, Z change and it's having an impact, he's winning his game, etc., etc. And I think for whatever reason, he hasn't done that this season. And obviously, with the Amrabat situation, it was very apparent that Amrabat needed to remove from left back during that game. Even if he was getting substituted out, you could have put Lindelof. Lindelof was already on, but you could have put Lindelof right back, Delot left back, and put Maguire centre back just to take Amrabat off the pitch, or put him in centre mid. I don't really care at this point. Just get him out of that left back position. So just little things like that, I don't think he's helping himself. The second thing I would add is the shoehorning of players. I'm sorry to say it. I know you're Bruno's a big fan, Alice. I know I see your tweets. I know you're
not on the right wing though. Get him off the right wing. He's awful
honestly, there. He's played like 5 games at Manchester United on the right wing, and I don't think he's got higher than rated than 5. I can't be overly critical of him because that is essentially the manager's fault for consistently picking it up. But at the same time, I expect a player of Bruno's ability to have an impact on the game, regardless if he's playing on the right wing, left wing, or centre attacking mid. For me personally, I don't understand why he's being shoehorned into the team. Him and Mason Mount quite clearly occupy the same areas, which is a detriment to both of their game, not just Bruno's game. I think both of them don't really benefit from that. Although, to be fair, Mason Mount, for me, the last couple of games has been quite good. Been happy with what he said, but I think for Ten Hag, he needs to start making these big calls. And that's what makes you a Manchester United manager. It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but if he's going to continue to persist with Bruno on the right, or he might put Bruno and Calvin, put Mason Mount on the right, or play them both as an 8, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, or Rashford striker.
Exactly. Just stop doing it. Weghorst in the 10. Please, just stop doing it. Play the players in their preferred positions or their best positions, whatever you think that is, but do not play them out of position when quite clearly, time and time again, they've shown they're not capable of playing that position. Amrabat has now shown the second time. If I see Amrabat left back again, honest to God, unless we have to play him there, then for me, Ten Hag is got serious question. I've got a question marks over him. Obviously, I'm not Ten Hag out. It's not his fault, as you said. The overarching factors aren't his fault. I do think a lot of these players are letting the team down. Individual errors can never be the manager's fault. I mean, every single goal we conceded was individual errors. We didn't concede a penalty, but that was individual errors as well. You can't blame Ten Hag for that. That's on the players. The players need to take accountability as well. And for me, as you mentioned, the players are absolutely spineless. I'm sorry to say it. When things don't go our way, they completely crumble. Lord have mercy when we play Galatasaray away in their stadium with the flares and whatnot. I don't know how we're going to cope with that atmosphere. We couldn't actually at home when our fans were actually behind us for a change as well. There was that period where the fans were rallying the players on and we actually got a goal. But if you can't do it at home, then Lord have mercy. I mean, that's a cauldron if I've ever seen one. So
yeah,
very easy to go to Turkish teams, especially in the situation we're in. So for me, there's obviously Ten Hag does need to take criticism. I think it would be extremely naive for me to not put any blame at his door. But at the same time, we need to understand that these players have let down 3 or 4 managers prior to Ten Hag. And I do think removing Ten Hag from the picture won't really change the overall picture, 100%. Which is the fact that Manchester United has still got a lot of work to do. Like the way I see it, Alice, I don't know what you think, is like, let's just say Ten Hag gets sacked. Let's say we lose against Brentford. He gets sacked, international break. I don't know. Let's just say we get Zidane in for the sake of a conversation. I don't know who else to bring in, to be honest. The Zidane comes in, he might start off well, players might do well, blah, blah, blah. Manager balance, all that, and then the same patterns will appear over and over again. We've seen it with 4 managers now. Like, it's that they start well, things looking great, but as soon as something goes wrong, it's toys at the pram, the league start coming, when things are bad at United, these players just love it. And I don't know if you saw that quote that I don't know if this is factual, but Ten Hag was saying he does somewhat have to reel it in terms of criticism because it feels like the mentality of the players is quite fragile. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's a credible source, but based on what I see on the page, I 100% believe it word for word. So I don't know what you.
Yeah, that expanded on that. Expanded on that as well. We spoke about apparently like he doesn't like the body language of the players when we go a goal down or we concede, and there was concerns of that. And I think you absolutely right in a lot of the things you say. The thing that's most concerning for me isn't actually Ten Hag. I don't agree, as I said, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Stop playing Bruno right wing. Don't play Rashford striker. Play Golston a 10. Like that annoys me. But I think it's the mentality of the players. Newcastle beat PSG yesterday because they worked their socks off in their pressing. They were running. You know, Newcastle had I think they had 28% possession and won the game 4-1 because they pressed, they forced them into mistakes, they forced them out wide, they stopped PSG being able to play through the midfield, break the lines. They did all this off the ball work, all this pressing, and then when they defended as a unit. Their wingers were tracking back, which is what's frustrating me about Rashford at the moment. They played so well together, Newcastle, and I just thought, we don't do that. Mesri does that, Hojlund does that, and Mount has been doing the off-the-ball work at United, but no one else has been doing it. We're not defending as a unit. We're leaving. Every time we concede a goal, there's someone left at the top of our box unmarked. The midfielders are losing a runner. Our defenders are being pushed off the ball. To be fair to Amrabat, he's not a left back, but his positional sense was dreadful, you know, in terms of left back. And then, you know what? We concede a stupid goal. And it's how many games have we actually been good for 20 minutes? Brighton, Bayern Munich, even Galatasaray. We played really, really well for 20, 25 minutes. As soon as we concede a goal, it goes to panic. Okay, hit the ball long, switch the play, transition, direct. Eric Ten Hag said we want to be the best team in the world in transition. Great. But as soon as we go a goal down, let's not play through the midfield. Let's not control the game. Let's not pass it around. Just go long. We get no control of the game. We give it away. We can't build anything up because we're not controlling the game. We can't create chances. And we're particularly poor. And I don't know if part of this is on Eric Ten Hag and his management.
Alex, let me ask you a question on that. I've got I'm playing devil's advocate here, just FYI. But so obviously you mentioned you know the manner in which we capitulate to an extent. Where obviously there's that famous saying that obviously Fergie's the manager, Keane's is manager on the pitch, so to speak. Our captain is Bruno Fernandes. What's Bruno Fernandes' body language like? It's said in terms of like his overall body language when things aren't going our way. Like what would you describe Bruno's body language, and how much you think, or if any, does that play an impact onto the team, or what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, he's whingy and moany when things don't go away, but the one thing I can't fault Bruno on is he does run, he does trap back. Yeah. He wasn't good in the last few games, but how many times will we see, and all of a sudden, the team on the break and Bruno's the only midfielder back? Where's Casemiro? Where's Eriksen? Bruno's back. And I think, look, Maguire was the shocking captain. I don't think we really have any leaders in the club. I think Bruno moans and whinges a lot, but I think I think he could do more, but he is the guy who's running back when the midfielders aren't there putting in those tackles. I think it goes beyond the captain and Ten Hag lifting the team. I think they need to do more, but I think it's at the point where we've had different captains where it just seems to be a pattern in the last year. Yeah. As soon as we go a goal down, we cannot respond. Apart from Nottingham Forest, which was incredible, I thought, okay, maybe that will be like a big psychology blow. Maybe going 2-0 down, winning 3-2. I was like, oh, this could be it, and it wasn't. And I think it's difficult because I think the 7-0 Liverpool, Bruno was just like, no, that's not acceptable in the slightest when we lost 7-0 to Liverpool. But I think it just is the players. I think they're weak-minded. A lot of them really weak-minded. And it's not really one to highlight, but I think it's as a collective, we just lack belief. I think that's what it is. They give up. They've checked out. And I think they're lacking confidence. Like Rashford's been dreadful this season. I don't think Rashford's a bad player. There's a lot of Rashford haters saying, I told you he was rubbish. I don't think Rashford's a bad player. He scored 30 goals for us last season. You can't be rubbish and score 30 goals. He can be selfish. He doesn't trap back. He can be frustrating. When he's good, he's brilliant. When he's bad, he's crap. But yeah, Rashford's been rubbish, but he looks like he's got no confidence in him. He looks like nothing's in him. And I think the big problem with these players is psychology. It's when things start going wrong, they lose all confidence, they lose all senses, they overthink everything, and it just capitulates. And something's really wrong with the mentality of that squad. We've seen it under Ragnar, we've seen it under Ollie, and this is why I'm worried about Ten Hag's future. Because I know players will come back from injuries. I know if he has time, it will improve. I did see positives in that Galatasaray game, and I do think Maino coming back, Mejbri's looking good. But I don't trust these players to turn it around. I think they're the type of people, they can mentally check out of a game after 20 minutes going 1-0 down. They can mentally check out of the season. Do you think our players are capable of turning it around, or do you think they've given up already?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I brought the Bruno one up is I do actually think, not just him, I do think a couple of the senior players are actually slacking, to be honest. I think, within those scenarios, you need your leaders to step up. I mean, obviously, we kind of alluded to the fact that, when things don't go our way, when we concede a stupid goal, where are the people that are rallying the players? Where are the people that are having those conversations with the team saying, yo, focus, let's just get through the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it may be. It seems to be a theme where we concede very quickly after we've scored. And I mean, obviously people can say it's a concentration thing, but I do think it's somewhat a mentality thing as well. I mean, there's no know-how within that team. There's no leaders in that team saying, how are we going to get through these next 10 minutes? How are we going to make sure we capitalize? And I tweeted earlier about an hour ago, and I'm still perplexed at the thought that we actually went 2-1 up to Galatasaray at home and we lost. No. So I just can't get that out of my head at 2-1, because I was at work covering the game. And I'm sat there at 2-1 with my mate, and obviously I'm sat there with a Liverpool fan, with my colleague, blah, blah, blah. And they're all like, oh, Man United won this, Man United won this. I'm like, no, you don't know this United team. You don't know this United team. You are capable of throwing this game away. But the truth of the matter is, at 2-1 at home, that's when we should have sensed blood. We should have went in for the kill. We should have won that 3-1, 4-1, whatever it may be, because the opportunities were there to kill them, essentially. And for me, we just don't have enough killers in that team. We don't have enough players in that team who've got that killer instinct and are willing to obviously, do the extra mile and make sure we get that W. And I think that's the biggest issue. And as soon as they scored their second goal, you knew things were going to go wrong. As soon as they scored that second goal, I just knew we've lost. I just knew it. I mean, I don't have anything. Yeah. As soon as it went 2-2, in my head, we've lost. And obviously, we got very fortunate that missed a penalty. Not that it mattered, because Icardi got his goal anyways. But at that point, I was like, I just don't trust this team to hold on. And I can't believe I'm saying that against Galatasaray at home. I know they've got Rupert Zaha. They've got, obviously, Icardi, who's a great goalsman. He's had a great track record throughout European teams. Obviously, they've got a couple of other good, decent players in there. But let's be honest, they're a poor team. They're a poor team. I mean, they gave us the entire Old Trafford pitch. And we lost that game for ourselves. And it's not the first time that's happened under Ten Hag or under Ali or under Rani. These players lose games on their own. They completely capitulated. Every goal is a mistake. The penalty was a mistake. So, yeah, we are mentally fragile. Absolutely fragile. And for me, Alice, to fix it, we've got to reset it. We've got to hit the reset button. We've got to get some of these players out that are influential. And I'm sorry to say it, but Bruno and Rashford, people are going to call me a hypocrite now, because I actually said I'll start Rashford against Brentford only because I don't like Anthony. So by all means, swap him out, whatever. But there's people that are big figures in this team that need to be on the bench just to see what happens. Let other people take responsibility. We've only seen it once this season. Yes, against Palace's C or B team, granted. But for me, I looked at that team and I didn't recognise it. I don't know what you thought, but I didn't recognise the team because there was a lot of positives. That everyone was fighting for each other. Everyone was willing to do the extra miles. I mean, there's that clip of Garnacho when he falls and gets up, etc. But it's just a different team, regardless of the opposition. I'm not talking about the opposition. I'm talking about what Manchester United are doing right. And I haven't seen our main team or A team do all those, those basics or fundamentals. And also, just to throw it to you as well, did you notice in pre-season that the B team always played better than the A team? Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Every single game, there's not one game you can actually look at, or one half, should I say, that the A team played better than the B team. We've got to start looking deeper. Surely there's got to be something in there. Surely, because it can't just be a coincidence that keeps happening, regardless of the opposition. That for me is just, I don't know. I just think we need to start again, man. Honestly, I'm a bit disappointed.
A few things to add to that. I think one of the things I will say is, remember this time a year ago, Liverpool had an awful start to the season.
Yeah.
Awful start. And they were going for the quadruple like 3 months before that. They were in all 4 cup competitions to the end. and then they just looked knackered. They kept getting loads of injuries, and Liverpool had a really poor start to the season, and then they turned it around. I do think potentially with these players that have played a lot, no player played more minutes than Bruno Fernandes in world football last season. Rashford was in the top 10 for minutes played. They were two of our best players last season. This season they've been particularly poor. So Casemiro played a lot of minutes. He's been particularly poor this season. We just know Eriksen can't play those kind of minutes as well. Yeah. I do sometimes look at it and go, I think that's got a part to play, just because the exhaustion from last season, loads of games in pre-season. I actually do think we're partly exhausted from last season, which is why we look so different. Because if you look at us when we beat City 2-1 last season, beat Barcelona, knocked them out of the Europa League, the Carabao Cup win, and then it was like all the fatigue caught up to us. And I don't think we fully recovered in the summer, which I think is potentially a problem at United. Yeah. But
that could be true for some players, definitely.
But I think the thing is, if a player isn't performing, they need to be dropped, no matter who they are, just to set a precedent and example. And Rashford's not been dropped. Bruno's not been dropped. And look, I rate Rashford. I rate Bruno. I think they're important players for the team, but they're not playing well at the moment. And if you're going to play Bruno on the right, don't play him at all. That is my feeling. It doesn't work on the right. And I think while Rashford and Bruno get our goals, I think if they are particularly poor, and I think Rashford's been absolutely dreadful, and if he's not tracking back or not doing the basics, you just drop them for a game or two. Even though I think if we dropped Rashford, he didn't play for 10 games, we kept playing Garnacho on the left wing, I still think we'd have the same problems. I don't think it's down to one player. I think you just got to set an example by dropping a player just for the standards. And I'm going to be honest with you, in the past, I used to think that just dropping one or two players who were performing badly and replacing them with these two players would make such a difference, but it doesn't. Like, that's something I've learned as a fan. I thought, Maguire was dreadful for so long. I was saying drop him for Bailly, drop him for Bailly, drop him for Bailly. Even though Maguire never got dropped for Bailly, when you think of it now, had Bailly played instead of Maguire in the back four, would we still be rubbish? Probably true, under Rangnick, under Ollie. I was desperate for McTominay to be dropped. I was fed up with McFred. I was screaming for Donny van de Beek to get a chance. And I think, we probably would have improved if we'd have got rid of McFred and stuff. But we don't play McFred now. We don't play Maguire now. De Gea, who was the so-called problem, Ronaldo, who was the so-called problem, none of them were here and we're still rubbish. And I'm at a point now where I think, we can have a good game without Bruno and we could have a good game without Rashford. But I think, let's say we dropped Bruno or Rashford, who have become sort of the two scapegoats now, and Onana's becoming the third scapegoat. Let's say we drop Bruno, Rashford and Onana for the next 10 games. I still think we'd lose 5 of them with just the way we are. I just think there's so many issues that it's not on one player. I think players that are performing badly need to be dropped. I think players like Mejbri, who are given 100%, need to start. Hojlund's been brilliant. Mount's been brilliant. I'd like to see Amrabat in his natural position. I'd actually play Maguire over Lindelof next game in terms of centre-back. I think Lindelof's been pushed off the ball. I think we need to drop the players that have been particularly poor. But I think the problems at United is so much more than, I see people shouting at Onana, blaming Onana. I don't think Onana's the problem. I don't think Rashford's the problem. I don't think Bruno's the problem. I don't think Casemiro's the problem, who's, not been at his best defensively. I think there's so many problems with this team. The way we are out possession, the lack of pressing, not covering ground, making so many mistakes, not doing the basics of mentality, that I think it's so much more than just dropping one player at this point. In the past, I would scream for Maguire to be dropped, McTominay to be dropped, but they're still bad. It's just, for me, I think there's so much more needed. I don't know what your thoughts are, but there's just so many.
Yeah, I kind of agree and disagree. So obviously, in terms of agreeing, I understand the overriding point they're trying to make. Obviously, it's not just one player; it's more of a collective. However, on the flip side, where I don't agree, 1 second, I just realised I've not got my phone. Do not disturb before my cousins ring me. But yeah, where I don't agree is, for me personally, I do think some of the players that you mentioned are wholly United back to an extent in this moment of time. I think Bruno Fernandes, for me personally, although when he's on song, he can be a great football player, as can Rashford, as you mentioned. Onana as well, another player that, for me is well below the level at the moment. I do think it does negatively impact over, the team. I mean, especially in defensively, I don't think anything's going to fix the defense. I can't lie, I just give it up at this point. Regardless of who's playing, that is just an absolute shambles. I just think whatever's happened there, we're missing 3 out of the back 4, basically. Wan-Bissaka, Martinez and Shaw would all be starting, realistically speaking, if they all fit. So that, for me, there's not going to be much change there. But in terms of the midfield and the front 3, I do think we get into a lot of good positions. If you actually watch United play, we do win the ball high up the pitch on numerous occasions. Whoever's obviously responsible for that, obviously there's a few different players that do that. But Rashford, for me, kills too many attacks. I mean, making the wrong decision time and time again. He's gotten to the point now that he's passing when he should be shooting and shooting when he should be passing. So obviously, in general, it's just he's doing the wrong things completely. Bruno Fernandes, again, extremely wasteful on the ball constantly. It's a massive deterrent. You can't keep the ball for more than 2 passes because he's constantly losing it. I mean, you saw against Galatasaray, who are not a good team. They're a poor team. Let's keep it real. You know, we should be walking that game realistically.
Yeah, can I add to that? I think I agree with what you're saying, because I think what we need to do now is go back to the basics and go back to
That's what I'm saying. Like we did in the cup game. In the cup game, we were nothing special. We just did the basics fantastically well. That's why we won 3-0. Because if you actually go on paper, our team is better than most of these other lower league teams on paper. So we do the basics better than them. We should win that. We should beat them 9 out of 10 times. And at the moment, Bruno's not doing the basics. Rashford's not doing the basics. Casemiro, another one, big fan. I put out a tweet saying he's going to get scapegoated. But the truth of the matter is, he's constantly losing the ball. Him and Bruno together in the midfield is like,
retention is awful.
Suicide, honestly. It's just, I said to my colleague who was a Liverpool fan who was watching the game with me, these guys, I said to him, just count how many passes that these two make. Every 2 passes, we're passing the ball away. If it's not Casemiro, it's Bruno. One of them two is just constantly giving the ball away. You can't build attacks like that. You can't sustain attacks. So for me, if Casemiro is going to play in the team, tell him you're a DM. You're not playing like Toni Kroos or Madrid. You're the DM. You're the destroyer. Do your job. Just do the basics. Win the ball. Play it 5 yards. And whoever's playing next to him, hand the ball, Amrabat, whoever it may be. Keep it simple. Keep it moving. Mason Mount, to be fair to him, the reason I've been happy with him, not because he's pulled up any trees or done anything amazing or magical. He's just come and done he's just done the fundamentals. He's got the ball on the turn, 1 touch, 2 touches, out, it's gone. Just got the ball, 2 touches, keeps it moving, nothing fancy. He's not pulling any trees up. Bruno can do that every day of the week, but he's just choosing not to. So for me, although I understand it's a bigger than 1 or 2 players, I get that. But at the same time, we've got to be honest. These players that are currently playing are not wanting to do the basics. Against Crystal Palace, if you look at the players out on the pitch, a lot of them aren't big names, really. Like, a lot of them are just like fringe players. They had a lot to prove. But you had like Garnacho in there, and Hannibal Mejri, and Mason Mount, who's just got and Palestri. They were fantastic. They did all the basics. And they did the other stuff, the dirty work, off the ball, brilliant, pressing. And to be fair to Martial, he had a good game as well. Obviously got his deserved goal. Casemiro was fantastic. He did the basics. He was, in general, he was actually probably did more than the basics. But
everyone
just
did.
For me, just strip it back and go back to the fundamentals. That's why I say.
I do agree with you on that. You made a really good point there. I think we were doing the basics, and that again, I've been talking about Newcastle a lot on my other channel, but I said they beat PSG because they played as a team, they pressed as a unit, they worked well off the ball, they all did their jobs. You know, this PSG superstar side got obliterated because they couldn't keep up with Newcastle.
Exactly. Look at the difference. Look at that PSG front four. Look at that Newcastle front four. Who you take on paper?
PSG. Yeah, and it's like actually they're doing the basics of football, and actually all of that is so important. And I think, partly Ten Hag maybe needs to do a little bit more on who he plays and maybe a bit more discipline. But I think it's some of these players, you know. And I think for me, it's the lack of control in game. We're doing these, switching the plays. We're trying too often to go direct, go long, be transition. And I don't think we have the right profiles in midfield to really build up in midfield. But for me, the left-back situation with the injuries is so annoying because I think Amrabat would have been so much good next to Casemiro. I think one of the reasons, and I know we played left-back in the opening game and it was against the poor Palace side, and I think we would have won even, like, no matter who really played. But I think what worked so well was that Amrabat, because Crystal Palace wasn't causing him problems down the flank, he was allowed to go invert into the midfield. And because Garnacho trapped back so well as well, Amrabat could invert into the midfield, so then Casemiro had that cover to go forward. And I think, you know, to really go back to the basics, we need someone in midfield, as you said, that's just going to be able to not give the ball away every 4 seconds, sit back, control. Amrabat, maybe Maino, who was so good in pre-season. You know, the games we won in pre-season, Maino played. It all went wrong when Maino didn't play. Every game Maino played in pre-season, we won, apart from the one he got injured, Real Madrid. And then we lost because he dropped deep between the centre-backs. He kept the ball. He progressed the ball. He just held on to the ball. He held that control. And I don't think we can expect Maino to come in and turn our season around. But I think Amrabat and Maino are probably the only two midfielders we have that are known for their ability on the ball to kind of actually progress the ball forward without giving it away. I think Ericsson can slow down a game, but he's just not good out of possession. I think Mejbri is fantastic out of possession. I think Mason Mount's fantastic out of possession. But we need a mixture of that. And I think, Bruno and Mount doesn't work together. It doesn't. I think we need Amrabat, we need Casemiro. And then on current form, I'd play Mount in that 10 role.
That's what I'm going for. I mean, for me personally, like, you hit the nail on the head with that Amrabat thing. As you mentioned, like, against Crystal Palace, yes, less opposition in terms of the lineup, like, the part out. He had the opportunity to essentially play centre mids. And we saw the difference it made in the game. We had complete control. And I think for me, that this comment here, we're so unbalanced. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like, why are we picking players that are unbalanced in the team? I keep mentioning Bruno's name mainly because he's been played out of position. Just play people based on what's going to be the best for the team, not based on names.
You said something about Bruno playing deeper, like he did when Casemiro got injured. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
It was me who said it. Like I said, like, on another platform, obviously not going to give other people shout-outs, but another massive platform, Manchester United platform that I'm sure most of you would know of, back in January, I think it was, maybe February, I can't remember. But I said if Bruno Fernandes is playing in Camp, we won't win the league. He has to play as an 8. And for me, if he's going to play in an 8, I'm not mad about it. But he can't play alongside Mount as a 4-3-3 with them two in 8s. Mount has to be the 10. If Bruno's on the pitch, Mount has to play in 10 and Bruno has to play in 8.
I'd like to see that.
Like, then it will work because Bruno is a workhorse, to be fair to the guy. He does work very hard and he can keep it simple. He can drop in between the centre backs, get the ball and spray it around. He can do that every day of the week. He's more than capable of doing that. I'm not denying that. But for me personally, you hit the nail on the head with that Amrabat thing. The thing with Amrabat, he has that calmness on the ball and he has that ability to just keep it simple, not do anything too flashy. As you said, drop in between the centre backs, get the ball, start an attack, and just keep it ticking. And that's what we're missing. We've got too many players trying to be heroes constantly. If it's not Rashford trying to take on 7 players, it's Bruno Fernandes doing the chip ball over the top, whatever it may be. Anthony shooting from 40 yards at about 7 times again. Yes, one will eventually go in. That is completely fine. I don't mind it too much with Anthony, but in general, we need the players playing as a unit, not individual players. And this, what do people used to say under individual moments FC, where it was under Ollie?
Yeah, Moments FC.
We're still Moments FC. We've got players just doing whatever they like, and there's not really that structure. So for me, just strip it back, play the players that have balance. And I think for me, the midfield 3 against Brentford has to be Amrabat, Casemiro, and Mount for me. If you want to play Anthony or Rashford on the right wing, so be it. I would personally start Martial. I know that's not going to be a popular opinion, but I would start him on the left wing.
Do you know what I was going to tweet and then I never did? I said I had this idea, but I don't know if it would work, where I'd actually like us, because I think we're not glimpsing the midfield. I was like, now we've got players that can do the work off the ball, like Mejbri. I think the diamond could somewhat work now in midfield because Ericsson and Casemiro couldn't cover the ground, so the fullbacks were getting exposed when we last did the diamond. But I thought I wouldn't mind seeing Amrabat, Mejbri, Mount and Bruno in a diamond with Martial and Hojlund as split strikers potentially. I think that could work with the ground being covered.
Yeah, I mean, the diamond didn't work when we played it recently because of Ericsson and Scott McTominay. Scott McTominay was clueless in general life, but he just didn't want the ball. Like, I think he had like 17 touches of the ball or something stupid for a midfielder, which is outrageous. But Ericsson doesn't have the legs. Casemiro doesn't particularly have the legs at the moment.
McTominay's useless. I think Donny could be of some use, weirdly. Maybe that's just me and unpopular opinion.
Yeah, hopefully by recouping 40 million for us, definitely not on the pitch. But yeah, no, I agree. I do think there's a potential that the diamond could work. Obviously, with the fact that obviously we don't have a right winger. But truth be told, Anthony's going to start against Brentford. So
I'd like to see Martial and Hojlund.
I'm desperate to see it. I know a lot of people don't rate Martial, understandably, because of his injuries, of course. But for me, I just think he would be brilliant for Hojlund. Because Hojlund, for me, I don't know what the time is. I don't know what the real time is. I haven't got watch. What's the?
Oh yeah, I'll wrap up in 1 minute. It's 20 past.
Oh, okay, I didn't know what time. I was just about to say. I just want to just say about Hojlund. I've been quite negative here, but a massive positive. Hojlund was outrageously good. I know it's against poor defenders, Sanchez, etc. I understand that, not to get carried away. But it's not even about him scoring the goals. It's just the composure that I haven't seen from a United player in the box for a long time. I mean, he just showed this killer instinct in the box that I loved. I mean, the goal that he scored that was offside was absolutely outrageous composure. I mean, I genuinely thought he hit on his right foot, but the fact that he just sent the player and obviously binned it, obviously, unfortunately, it was offside, but obviously the second goal as well, driving, strength, and the chip as well. Oh my God. I think I screamed. I screamed. Honest to God, I fully screamed at the top of my lungs when he scored that. So, like,
Same.
on a positive note, man, honest to God, Hojlund, please, I beg, just give him service. And, you know, it was a great cross for Rashford for the first goal as well. So, fair play to him. But, yeah, man, it was just nice to see a proper number 9. And he hasn't really shown us what he's capable of so far in the United shirt. And this has been the first game, really, that we've seen what he's capable of. So, it was exciting to see, man, honestly. It's just... Hopefully we can get him a bit more service. But overall, man, they need to trust him more because quite clearly this guy's got a talent. So yeah, I
think the bright spot right now is Rasmus Hojlund. Incredible. I mean, he's technically got 5 goals, but only 3 counted, and I think that's the real positive. But I do want to thank Usman for coming on the show. Do you want to just let everyone know where they can find you?
Yeah, no, obviously, firstly, as always, a pleasure. Thank you, Alice. Make sure you slap the like, people, obviously. Subscribe to Alice, obviously she's one of the most consistent people out there, so make sure you're subscribing for more content. Regarding myself, I'm actually uploading twice today, so I've got a show in about 10 minutes on my channel, which is Usman Talks United. So 7:30, believe it or not, Alice, but I've got an Eric Ten Hag out fan. I don't know if it's a fan. I don't know what to call him. Hater. I don't know. Eric Ten Hag hater on the channel, so we're going to be debating Ten Hag and obviously all things Manchester United. And then I've got a FIFA stream with the family, which is absolute chaos because we're shocking, but it's good fun anyway. That's at 10:30. So yeah, make sure obviously subscribe to Alice, and obviously if you wish to do so, make sure you come subscribe to myself at Usman Talks United.
All right, big up everybody. Big up Usman for coming on. Thanks everyone for watching. Smash a like, smash a subscribe. See you next time. Bye.
Peace.